Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Russian Fishing Forum. My name is Tucker, and I've been thinking through, and I think in this playthrough, and obviously, if you've seen the name I'm using here, we're going to plan on doing mainly float fishing. So, especially with the orders that were out there at Winding right now, being mainly bleak and gudgeon, those tend to be very, very small fish. So, I want to start off by buying a tiny hook. So early on, the smallest you can get is a size 20 hook. It does cost 3 silver. So we'll go and buy one of those. And then from baits, I also want to buy some blood worms for $1.80. So that leaves us with just under 45 bucks. I wish we had 45 silver, as we'd probably buy a new rod if we did. But since we don't, I do want to go try and catch the bleak. One thing I did notice is one of the bleak orders expires in 2 hours in game, so I don't know if we're going to get that one, but we're sure going to try. So this is pretty much right after episode 0, the tutorial. I waited just a little bit for the sun to come up, and then I also ran over to Mosquito to see if there were any better orders over there, and didn't really see anything different, so figured I'd start off at Winding. I could have bought a map, but since I'm trying to get to another rod pretty quickly, I did not. So back over here, kind of on the back side, so we went across the bridge from the cafe. There is a little pond that doesn't have a lot of current, if any. So I like to come over here for a lot of different fish. And right now we're going to come over here. So we do have two float rods. We've got the bamboo rod that we got, and then the telestick. So here I've pressed U, and that gives you 5 different slots that you can put things in. And if you buy premium, you have 6 and 7. But again, we're going to try and make this a completely free to play playthrough. So you hold down U as in uniform, you can then put your rods in those slots, and then you can just press 1 or 2 to select it, pick it up. So right now I want to put my telestick in slot 1, the old bamboo rod in 2, and then because I have it, I'll put the spinning rod in 3, although I probably won't use it much. So we'll go ahead and press 1. We'll take out the telestick that we started off over at the cottage pond with. And then if you press V as in Victor, you can edit what you're holding in your hand. So I want to put that size 20 hook that I bought on here. And then I want to put the bloodworm on it. And in general, bleak tend to be very close to the surface. So I'm going to hold the minus key and bring it down to about 25 centimeters deep. And then we'll just cast it out. And you can see that it's out there. So the other thing you can do is you can have multiple rods out in the game. So I've actually mapped the forward button on my mouse to do this, but you can also press 0 and you can set the rod down in a rod holder. So now that lets us have that one out, and then I can press 2 and take out the bamboo rod. So this time it doesn't have a fishing line on, so we'll put the old fishing line on it. We'll put the feather float on it because this could break easily and I don't want to lose anything I care about. Go ahead and throw the rusty hook on it and some worms just to see what we can catch. So we'll go ahead and cast that out there. It's already fairly shallow, and see what we want. And it looks like this one's already down, so I'm going to pull it out, and it looks like I got a Chinese sleeper. So that counted towards some qualifications. We got a little bit of XP and some float fishing leveling as well too. That wasn't the best sleeper, but there was also an order up there for sleepers, so I will take it. So what I like to do is usually 2 float rods is about all my brain lets me go with. So here I like to put the kind of float fishing camera next to the other float and just kind of keep an eye on it. So it looks like we're getting a nibble on both. That's a bleak that I just caught on line 1. It's a small one, which is unfortunate because the big orders, the one that's expiring soon, but bleak are worth a decent amount of XP, especially since this was the first bleak I've caught on this account. So we'll cast it back out, and it looks like my feather's still under, but I pulled that out and didn't have anything on the line. That especially happens with the feather float. And this rod is a very poor rod, so I'm not entirely surprised. So If I can, I like this kind of view where I can see them both at the same time in case they start moving side to side, because I missed it again. The float fishing camera that shows up in the center doesn't show you side to side movement. It just really shows you up and down in the water. So we are getting a little bit of nibble over on rod 1, so I switched over to it. And you will learn that each fish species has a different type of bite. Ooh, I can't believe that was not an actual bite. Bleak are very quick. They pull it down, they let it go. So you have to pull it out of the water pretty quickly when you do get a bite from Bleak. So that's why I did that there. You do want to wait until the float is completely underwater. Bream will like to push the float up in the air. So you kind of have to watch and learn how each fish does their attack on your rods. So bleak are a daytime fish as well too. That's one reason I waited for the sun to come up. They are not a nighttime fish. Ruffe is a good early game nighttime fish that we'll a lot of times focus on. With float fishing, we will tend to focus on some of the smaller fish, especially early on, because you just don't have the gear to go after the bigger fish. So here we're just kind of waiting for a fish to bite onto our bait. We're getting a couple nibbles. Honestly, a size 20 hook is a little bit big for bleak, but I've had some pretty good luck with it in the past. If you notice the feather float just kind of went up and laid back down. We did catch another bleak on this rod before I could switch over the float to the feather, and it looks like the feather is kind of back to normal, so I'm not going to pull the feather out. I am going to go ahead and switch over to it because it does look like it's moving. It flipped back over, so I'm going to pull that out, and I caught a white bream. Nice. It's a little bit of a small one, but we did level up to level 2. Float fishing is up to 1%. So we will keep that fish. And we'll go ahead and cast this back out. Switch back over to rod 1. And it's under, so we'll pull out. It looks like another sleeper. Yep, another small sleeper. Because we're using smaller hooks, we'll tend to catch smaller fish right now. Size 20 is still pretty big for... there's multiple kind of categories of hooks. Size 20 is the biggest tiny category hook. Oh, that was a bleak and I missed it. I can't believe it. That didn't go where I wanted it to. I want to get a little bit further out there. There we go. So telesticks, you can cast out further if they're a little bit longer. So when you're buying a new rod, that is one thing you want to look at, is the length of the rod. So I've kind of covered there are 3 different types of fishing. There's float fishing, which is what we're doing here. There's spin fishing, which is what we did over and over in the tutorial to catch that little chub. Ooh, nice sleeper. So one thing you'll notice here is this sleeper has this green marker on it, and you'll hear it referenced as a marker. Marker fish are worth significantly more, and then as you catch fish, you will see a gold icon, which is referred to as a trophy, and then very rarely you'll get a blue icon, which is a blue trophy. So that fish is going to be worth probably a silver by itself, whereas the non-marker ones are probably worth a couple hundredths of a silver. So float fishing is what we're doing. Spin fishing is what we did in the tutorial over and over and over to catch that little chub. And then finally, there's bottom fishing. You don't see a lot of bottom fishing, especially the way this game gets to in the States. You do see bottom fishing where there's a sinker on it and it holds it on the bottom of the lake. But the way European fishing works is a lot of times you use what's called ground bait, where you roll up a ball of the type of bait you want to use to catch the fish and try and confuse it into catching it. Caught a little bit of a small roach, so again, another new fish, another small one, but I think there was also a roach order out there, so might be worth keeping. We'll see. But uh, the way I probably will plan on doing things here is, like I said earlier, my brain can only usually do 2 float fishing fish rods at the same time. We'll probably buy a bottom rod for our third rod. So this is a decent bleak. It's 76 grams, and we've leveled up to level 3. Early on, you will level up quickly. Later on, it will take a long time. So you notice there we were getting a couple of hundred XP for that fish. And it will get to this stage where it takes hundreds of thousands and millions of XP to level up. And I missed another fish while I'm talking. One thing I like about float fishing is it is a lot more interactive than bottom fishing. Bottom fishing, you throw it out there, you tighten it up, and then you can get a set of bells that'll jingle as you get bites. So you can almost AFK fish that way. Spin fishing is somewhat interactive. There are techniques you can use, especially later on in the game. But I personally just don't enjoy float fishing as much as a lot of people do. But that's me. Other people will enjoy it. So again, another small bleak, 26 grams. I think we needed 5 over 20 for the order for the small order. And then it was 5 over 60, if I remember correctly, for the big order, which probably has already expired because it was 2 hours. So we'll catch this fish here. Another sleeper, another 100-gram sleeper. Nice. And as you saw there, as you pull the fish out, you can see the fish just like it will be as you catch it, and you can get an idea of how big it is. You'll even see it a lot of times. Some of the lakes that don't have their reflections here, we've got the clouds that are reflecting in the way. But at Quarry or some of the other ponds, you can see the fish come up and attack your lines as well too, and it's kind of fun to watch the fish swim over, nibble at it, and then attach on and kind of watch it as you reel it in and pick it up. So it is getting kind of warm here at Quarry. It's already up to 15 degrees Celsius. That's really when I noticed his bite rates start to drop, but we'll keep going. We'll keep bleak fishing. So my goal is to fish for about an hour a day. Again, an hour in real life is 1 day within the game. So I may log in at times to do some of the other tasks or make a decision on what we want to do, but I probably won't do a whole lot of fishing off camera. And if I do, it may just be I'll speed things up. So got another small bleak, and we're already up to level 4. Saw that rod down and wanted to catch it pretty quickly. Looks like a decent sleeper. Not quite a marker. I think marker's at 100 grams for sleeper. I do notice my comfort's a little bit low. That's because we had to stand out in the rain in the spin fishing tutorial to try and catch that fish for so long. Not too long we'll be able to do something about that, but right now it's just something we have to deal with. Not a big deal at this stage of the game. And the comfort is that 4th bar in the bottom left that's yellow. So I haven't really gone over the UI too much. The bottom left corner has your XP and how far you are from your next level. So right now I've got 151 points and I need looks like 9,000 XP. Sorry, 0.8 thousand XP to level up. So 800 XP. So we're about a quarter of the way there. Then you've got your overall energy, your food, your health, and your health really only goes down if you drink too much alcohol in the game. You can use alcohol for a small XP boost. I don't do a whole lot of alcohol, especially early on. When you get later in the game, it makes more sense to do it potentially when you're going for really big fish. And then the bottom is your comfort. Comfort is usually gained by drinking tea or beverages, food. You get food, interestingly enough, from drinking tea. I will probably be making tons and tons of tea, and cooking is a skill that you get to level up in game as well. Caught another small bleak. Unfortunately, we're not getting a lot of markers. Bloodworm's not the best bait, and I'll show you an option for seeing what baits are good here in a second. Bloodworm's not the best bait, but it is usually pretty successful. Another small bleak. So if you press C, you can pull up your keep net, and you can order it by fish. And I like to a lot of times do by weight. So we needed over 20. We definitely have that. We only have the one marker. I missed the feather float while I was talking there. We definitely didn't get enough fish for the big bleak order. It had expired anyway, so not too worried about that. I thought about going for some gudgeon here. Actually, let's see what we can do. It's getting a little bit late in the day, but shows some different options for fishing. So we'll go back over to the cafe. We will turn in the fish that we've caught so far, and then we will go over, grab our free food, and try and catch some gudgeon. All right, let's see what order replaced it. Nace order, big nace, probably not something we're going to be able to do. So it looks like we did get 2 of the orders. We definitely got the bleak. So I like to sort by weight because you do get more money for the bigger fish from the fish market. So here we're going to get 16.5 silver for selling these 5 bleak. Show you why it's important to do cafe. Let's go look at the fish market for those same 5 smallest bleak. So again, we were getting 16 from the cafe. We're getting 0.05 from the fish market. So substantially better to come over here and sell it to the cafe. And early on, silver is your biggest blocker. So Chinese sleeper, we do have 2. They're both bigger, but definitely not big enough to get over 6. So we'll sell those. Roach, the one roach we got wasn't big enough for that. So let's go see if we can get some gudgeon. Not going to promise anything. Gudgeon are kind of hard, but probably worth a try. So we'll go ahead and sell the rest of our fish as well too. $3, and we also sold the most expensive fish we have yet. So I do want to come over here. I want to grab some food. And then one thing I haven't really mentioned too much is, and I noticed I've got enough silver to do so, is you can go up to rods and kits. And there are a bunch of different kits, and they're usually pretty decent. So I'm actually going to go ahead and buy the float fishing starter kit here. This will get us another decent float rod. It's a little bit longer, a little bit more powerful rod. You can press I here. You'll see the kit. You do have to unpack it. And then when you unpack it, it will say, are you sure you want to do this? Because once you do this, you cannot return it. So yes, I want to do that. Gudgeon tend to go after worms, and they are also another small fish. So I'm going to go ahead and buy a second size 20 hook and put that on the new rod. So I'm going to put the new rod. I actually want to put the new rod as my number 1 rod, and the telestick we've had as number 2. Probably won't use the bamboo rod. So press V here again. We'll go ahead and put the size 20 hook we just bought on there, and a worm on it as well. For bait options, if you press escape, you get this screen. You can go to records and ratings and weekly. And then I like to look at both all regions. So here's all the different regions that they have servers. So you can scroll down, and we're going after gudgeon. Gudgeon tend to be red worm. This is casters and worm. Red worms are expensive early on, can't really afford them. Casters usually are hard to find at low levels and can be expensive, so I'm not going to really look at that. Let's go see if USA is any different. I'm not expecting much here, but this is a great way to look at what baits have been successful in catching gudgeon. So here's stonefly larva and bark beetle larva as well too has been pretty decent. This person actually was even using sandwich bait, so they had two different baits on there. So higher level lets you do that, but not that big of a deal for us. We're gonna go ahead and fish with worms. So there's a spot I've had a lot of success with getting gudgeon, so we're gonna run over to that and see what luck we have. So I do want to come over here, and this little dock is where I've had my success. I like to be a little bit deeper again than normal, so we're gonna go 35. And this time we are actually on the river. So one thing you'll notice is when I cast this in there, it will slowly drift down the river. And if you look above the tension bar in the bottom, it says drifting with current. So get a little bit of a bonus for that. So I'm going to go ahead and set that rod down, pull out my other rod, press B as in Bravo, put worms on it as well too, and we'll cast that one out and see what happens. So the red rod is on number 1, and the blue rod is on number 2. And unfortunately, I was standing too close to the red rod and couldn't put the blue rod down and switch over. So we missed a bite there, but it is what it is. You will never get every fish that you try and catch. So float fishing in the river, a lot of times you have to do this where you pick it up, you move it over, you recast it back out. And this time I'm standing where I couldn't put down a rod, just too far out into the water. So unfortunately, because they're split up as much, I'm going to go ahead and pick this up and recast it so that I can see both of them at the same time. The red bobber is my number 1 rod, and the yellow bobber is my number 2 rod. And we've kind of reached the length of the line on number 1. I've noticed personally that a lot of times I get a lot of gudgeon bites when it's sitting like that. And then this one just went down, and looks like we got a little perch. Completed a task for telescopic rods for qualifications. We'll go ahead and keep that little perch. Go recast this out. Other rod is too close. Put it down, switch over, cast it out. I think my number 2 rod actually is a little bit longer. I didn't look, but we'll see. So again, number 2 is a yellow, number 1 is a red. It's not looking like I'm going to hit gudgeon here today. I tend to hit them earlier in the morning personally, but it was worth a try. It's also 20 degrees out, so it's pretty warm. I may try and go a little bit deeper because of that. I hadn't noticed that. So if you haven't seen that, that's up in the upper right corner. It's 20.5 degrees Celsius out there. It's 16:09, so it's 4 p.m. and it's partly cloudy. And there's western wind at 1.6 meters per second. And you do control the rod, obviously. So as you turn the mouse, you will slowly move your rod and get a little bit more distance out of it. Later on, you can use that to kind of go the fish where you want it to go, especially with your spin fishing or catching the big fish, to steer it away from certain areas. Again, fish have a mind of their own, so you can't always do it, but it's worth a try. I'm going to take this down to 50. If I remember correctly, that's almost at the bottom of the water here. And actually, you can see how it's very slow. So I think I'm actually dragging. Actually, I know I'm dragging because I'm no longer drifting with the current. You saw it kind of wiggle like that. So 50 is probably a little too deep. May go back to about 40 some odd. This rod was already close. We'll go to 40. See what happens. A little bit further out, it's a little deeper as well too, but also a little bit more current. But today doesn't look like it's going to be super worthwhile. We may go back over to Mosquito and fish in there. I didn't see a whole lot of other options for cafe orders. And early on, cafe, trying to target this specific species, tends to be your best bet. I'm going to go ahead and pick up my rods here. Confused myself by moving that one over there. This is my number 2 rod. I'm going to go ahead and say we're not going to catch any gudgeon, especially with it getting cloudy and towards the end of the day. I'm going to go back over to Mosquito. So let's go sell that one little perch we got and get our probably 3 cents out of it. I could have actually sold that over at Mosquito, but worth getting used to it. It was all of 4 cents. But we'll come back over to Mosquito, and then I'll also go show you where to buy a map of Mosquito so that you can see where you are on the lake. It also gives you an idea somewhat of the depths and things like that. But let's go take a quick look at the cafe before we go too far. So Ruffe, that's a good nighttime species. Bleak, we only need 2. We may go try and target that real quick. 3 Chinese sleeper would be pretty easy as well too. So there are definitely a lot of options here. But like I said, let's go buy a map so that you can see that. So here at Mosquito, you buy the maps. You buy the maps at all maps, at all the water bodies, at the administration building. And here at Mosquito, it's across the bridge. And then for 3 silver, you get a map, but it kind of has GPS on it as well too, so it's kind of nice. So if you press M, you'll bring up the map, and you are that big green circle. You can see the depths of the water, where the big holes are, things like that. So I did notice there was a decent bleak order, and I've had a lot of luck for bleak just right over here. So I do want to switch back over to bloodworms and shallower again. It is still pretty warm, so I don't want to go all the way shallow. But I've noticed fish tend to be a little more used to the warmth here than at winding. And I hit the wrong button there. Hit 0 instead of minus. Noticed that the bobber went down, so quickly switched back over. And it was a small perch. Oh, I do want to switch back over to bloodworm. Let's go as shallow as we can with this one just to see if there's any difference. So what I like to do with the two rods is put the camera next to the other one that's just kind of free out there in the world. So there's one of the two sleepers we needed for the order there. And this one's got a fish on it. Bigger sleeper, nice. Unfortunately, not seeing the Bleak that I was hoping we were, but we'll also go after Ruffe. So the Ruffe are a great way to level up. Great source of early game money, and almost always there's a cafe order for them at either Mosquito or Winding, and a lot of times at both. And you can sometimes even pull off getting the order at both in one night. So got another sleeper there, and another small sleeper. And this is why I say that two float rods is about all my brain can handle. So if there was a third one, trying to keep an eye on that third bobber is a little bit too much for me. So I tend to do two float rods and a bottom rod. In general, going for three bottom rods is probably your most efficient way of leveling up early on. But I kind of enjoy the interactiveness of float fishing more than bottom fishing. My guess is this is a roach with how much it's uh, nibbling at it. Yep, it's a decent sized roach too. Marker roach. So personal record for the biggest fish and the strongest fish. Small roach. One thing I haven't covered is there is a chat in game. When you first start out, it's going to show you what other people in at the same lake are catching. You can set up, and I may set up a separate room for chats, uh, and then you can see what people are catching in that chat room across all the different water bodies. And every fish you catch doesn't show up. It has to be a marker and a little bit of a bigger marker to actually show up. So there you saw that 70-gram sleeper did not show up in chat, and chat is just over the your level indicator. So the next big fish, I'll show where that shows up. Another small roach. So again, you can press Z as in Zulu or Z as in zoom to zoom in. So I mentioned Ruffe tend to be a night fish. So here about 8 o'clock, so about 2000, we'll go try and catch some Ruffe. This spot's actually been pretty decent for Ruffe as well too. Ruffe tend to be a lower bottom fish rather than a topwater fish like Bleak and sleepers are. Sleepers are also bottom fish as well too, I've noticed a lot of times. So that's a decent sized sleeper. Not quite a chat worthy one though. But it was a marker, and marker means silver. So we caught 10 fish here. We've been here 3 hours, I think, in game. Not too bad. Another roach. And we're up to level 5 already. So that one actually showed up. You press Q as in Quebec, you can chat, and you can see here that I caught that 432-gram roach, and I've reached level 5. So you'll notice I tend to put my rods down where number 1 is the left rod, number 2 would be the center rod, and if I had a third rod out on the ground, it would be the right rod would be my number 3 rod. Right now, we do have the old bamboo pole, but it's easy to break that one, so I don't use that too much. Again, this feels like a decent sized roach with it nibbling, and you'll kind of learn, especially the more you float fish, the more the ways that the fish attack your bait. but I'm almost positive this is a roach. It's either a roach or a gibble carp. It is after 8 o'clock, so I may start going for rough with at least one of these rods. Usually about 10 o'clock is where things get better for going after rough. Marker roach. So let's go ahead and go after rough. They tend to do well off worms, and like I said, they tend to be a little bit of a deeper fish. And so we're going to go down to 70 centimeters for this area. If I remember correctly, that should be fine. Yep. And the bobber is not laying weird, so it's not sitting on the bottom. You do not want your float fishing to be sitting on the bottom, because then the fish can grab it and you will have no idea there's a fish on. I've had that happen more often than I want to admit. So this time I didn't cast it out quite as far. You can see how it's laying on its side like that. That means I'm sitting on the bottom. Still trying to get a bleak. I think we're going to before it gets too late. This might be a white brain. Nope. Gibble carp. Decent gibble carp. Biggest fish we've caught, and first gibble carp we've caught so far. So sun is starting to go down. It's 9 o'clock in game, 18 degrees outside, so still pretty warm. I don't like how that one was sitting, so I'm going to just reset it. Looks like it was popped up a little bit. I'm honestly probably a little far out for rough. They tend to be closer to the shore. So I showed you buying the kit for this 500-gram roach, biggest one we've caught yet. I showed you buying the starter float kit. The starter feeder kit is about 150 silver, and that's probably going to be what I'll aim for next. After that, we'll probably look at getting a shovel to dig for worms and a tea kettle to be able to brew tea for food and comfort. So since it's warm outside, our comfort's actually gone up a little bit. We were yellow earlier. Usually comfort goes down when it's cold out, and especially when it's cold out and rainy out. I didn't like how that one was setting. It was popped up just a little bit. So you can see that little yellow stripe on the bobber. You want to make sure that's level with the water. So we transitioned from daytime to nighttime. This is usually when the roughs start picking up. Keyworded usually. Rough are easier bottom fishing than they are feeder fishing, but I tend to have pretty good luck feeder fishing for, or float fishing for them as well. You saw that time how the bobber started moving to the side. That showed me that there was a fish on there instead of it going straight down. So it's just things you learn as you fish. Oh, it is starting to get night out. Because I can still see my bobbers, I don't like turning on my flashlight. I don't know how well it's going to show up on YouTube, so I'll go ahead and turn on my flashlight now just to show you what we see. I like to fish more like this. For me, I can still see both my floats, and in general, shining a light in the water can scare fish off. At least that's been my experience. So if I don't see a rough hit here pretty soon, I may turn a little bit to the side. I've had some more luck over that way. We're getting a nibble on both of them right now. Another roach. There's a rough. We only need, I think it was 3 of them. Either 2 or 3. So early game, you'll be going after crucians, gibbles, roaches, sleepers, those type of thing. Late game here, you can get ides. Ides are hard to get low level. They tend to prefer the boilie type baits and sandwich baits. So I don't fish for ides too much, especially at Mosquito, but you can. So I showed off the records. If you saw in chat right now, uh, Overclave just caught a weekly record broad whitefish somewhere, and that's going to be a regional. So there are the globals and then regions. If it's a global weekly, it'll say global weekly broad whitefish. Sorry. There's a weekly world record, so that's probably the biggest black carp. And that little M next to it shows it was a float fish or a telly stick caught fish. That was an 18-kilo telestick. That's a big fish to just pull out with your own muscles. No rod, nothing like that. So I've kind of crossed my lines a little bit here. The one on the right is actually my number 1 rod. The rods are in the right place, just the bobbers are kind of switched. So even though this is my number 1 rod on the left, the float was actually on the right. I'm going to switch over and aim a little bit over this way and see if we have some better luck. A lot of times fishing fishing right next to this little boat has been where I like to have good luck. I am standing where I can see both. I'm should be close enough that I can pick up the other rod if I need to. I think this rod, number 2, is still shallow as well too. So since we're getting a nibble, I'm not going to pull it in, but I'll look when I pull it in and see if I need to make it go deeper into the water. Come on, server. It is an online game. There are times this happens where your internet just doesn't work or the server's slow. 395-gram roach. Yeah, we were still very shallow. And I'm out of worms already. So let's go switch over to maggots. And then we'll probably have to go buy some worms. Or actually what we'll do is we'll go back to cottage and get the free 30 worms. It was telling me it was impossible, so I was too close to the water to put a rod pod down. Got a small perch. We'll try maggots. I don't have a whole lot of hope that they're going to do what I want them to. We're also out of bloodworms. So other than this, we have wet bread, which Ruffe really won't go after if we're going to wet bread. We're mainly going to be going after the carps, the roaches. Roaches eat almost anything. Caught him at a Ruffe there. So that was on maggot. This one again feels like a roach with it just being nibbled on, nibbled on, nibbled on. It's a good one if it is. 644-gram roach. We're up to level 6. Almost up to level 10 float fishing as well too. So, or 10% float fishing. So as you level up float fishing, you will unlock different rod types, different ways of fishing, that type of thing. One thing I haven't covered, and since we have some, is you do get a skill point every time you level up. So probably next episode we'll go over that. My goal for these episodes is for them to be about an hour long. Again, an hour in game or an hour in real life is 24 hours or a day in game. So we started around 7, 8 a.m. So that's going to be what I'm targeting for wrapping things up. We've been going for about 48 minutes right now. If I remember correctly, the rough order was 3, so I'm hoping we catch one more. That looked like it was up in the air to me, so that's why I pulled it in. Come on, just one more, please. I honestly like to be right next to this boat, so right here is my best spot. I'm standing over here so that I can grab that other rod, but I'm going to go ahead and just set this one down and move my number 1 rod closer to that. So you will see different spots referenced. So in the bottom right, there is your coordinates. So it's showing that we're at 5594 for your coordinates. You'll also see a lot of times that it references by a map, so it would be D3. But since there's a fair amount of room in D3, giving exact coordinates is a common way of doing things. So there are a couple different places, various Discord servers. The official Russian Fishing 4 Discord server has a trophy section to show you where the big fish are caught. There's also a community on VK. So VK is basically the Russian equivalent of Facebook. You can sign up for it even if you're not in Russia. You do have to a lot of times translate it, and so it's not going to be exactly word for word, but I'll try to remember to put a link to the VK community in the description as well here, just so you have that. Um, those are kind of places you can look for where people are catching trophies. A lot of times they'll include a picture of their setup and their location. So 5594 on Mosquito fishing for Bleak, that type of thing. But there was a sleeper order. We've probably finished it. Like I said, I'm pretty sure the Bleak order or the Ruffe order was 3 Ruffs. And there's number 3 right there. Let's go turn that in. And then instead of waiting for the day to start, we'll go ahead and wrap it up here a little bit early and see if we got enough to buy our bottom rod. So it is after midnight. I'm getting a little bit hungry in game, so I'm going to come over here, press E as an echo, and eat my free food. And I got an achievement for eating free food. So let's go up to here. It's 5 Rough. Dang it. So Roach order we got 5 roaches for 10 silver. Glad we came back because there was only 2 minutes left or 2 hours left on that. Sleeper was 3 of them, so we'll go ahead and turn that in. So there's 22 total if we from here. I would like to try and get a few more rough. We only need 2 more rough for that one. Crucian, I don't think we actually caught any crucians, so let's go see if we can get 2 more rough. Usually you got until about 7 o'clock. So I think we still have time to finish off the rough order. And I want that silver because an extra 30 silver isn't going to quite get me to the 150 we need for the basic bottom rod, but it gets us a lot closer than we are. Sun is coming up, so I'll go ahead and turn off my flashlight. It should be bright enough for everyone to see. So we've got 42 silver right now. And we do have some fish we didn't sell yet. And we're hoping to get 2 more. Oh, come on. To complete that order. That's one of the downsides of float fishing is it is very much a timing thing. And in that case, I was just a little bit too early to be able to catch that fish. One of those I was talking and not paying attention. One more rough. One more rough. I hit Q instead of 2. Nice. I do notice a lot of times the 4 to 7 window is good time for roughing. So I'm pretty sure we've hit our order. I'd like to get one more just to cover ourselves. because I didn't look to see if there was a weight limit on them. No, there was, but I think markers were good enough, and I think we've all the ones we've caught are markers. So pretty sure we're okay, but I'd like to catch one more just to be on the safe side. So I do need to go back to Cottage Pond to get a free float tackle and really get our 30 free worms before we wrap things up today. There's a global weekly record white bream. Nice, that was a double. That was a weekly overall and then a weekly telescopic as well. But white breamer tend to be on telescopic, so that was a small rough. Come on, one more fish. One more decent sized rough, please, game. If it gets to 5:30 and we don't have another bite, I will probably wrap it up. All right. We'll go ahead and call it a day there for fishing. So pick both of our rods up. Especially with float fishing, you do not want to leave a rod in the water. If a big fish grabs it, they can break it. So let's go turn in the rough order, and then we'll sell the rest of our fish. Go back to cottage, get our free worms, and then wrap it up here. So it was 5 at 20. So sort by weight. That way we keep the 87 gram one around. So here's 35 silver. So that gets us up to 75. Birch, we needed 5. We only caught 2. Not really worth trying to catch those. Crucians would be an easy one for another 30. But I'm getting a little bit tired. It's kind of late here tonight, honestly. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. We'll go ahead and sell the rest of our fish here. So another 16 fish, another 16 silver. And if you sort it here, you can see how all of the markers are worth more than the non-markers. Even though this perch is 213 grams, it's still basically worth nothing because it's a small fish. But rough are decent silver, so that 87 gram rough is 5 silver by itself. So there's another 16 and a half silver. Sold the most expensive fish we have, and we're up to 92. So tomorrow, when we come back, we'll try and get enough silver to buy the feeder rod starter kit. But let's go back to cottage. Let's get our free worms, especially early on. Free worms are always a good thing. So again, you can do that once for in-game day. So come back to Cottage Pond, run back over to your house, and then make sure you get the spare float tackle, not the spinning tackle. But if you press Y, you get the free uh, float tackle, which comes with 30 additional worms. So really, I don't even think I got anything else because I hadn't broken it. I already had the feather, I already had that, but we did get, looks like we actually got 100 worms that time. Nice. I didn't realize that was going to be the case. Definitely a good thing to come back and get your worms. I do like to at least get the spare float tackle at least one, or spare spinning tackle at least once. It does come with a pretty decent reel. It is kind of worn out, so it's noisy, but it's a nice thing to have a second reel at times. But we'll go and wrap it up there. I appreciate everyone stopping by. Have a good one, and we will see you all next time. Thanks.